The galaxy had been at peace for 12,000 years. 5 great species ruled the stars together. They called their alliance the Galactic Concord, and they believed their power would last forever. There were insects. They stood 8 feet tall and thought as one through their hive queens. They were made of living crystal. Their bodies glowed with the light of their emotions, and they never forgot anything. They lived in water. They built their cities in the deep oceans of 100 worlds. They had wings and beaks. They were proud warriors who valued honor above all things, and they were the oldest of all. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. They believed they understood everything. All 5 species shared one secret, one terrible truth that they never spoke about. 12,000 years ago, there had been a 6th species in the galaxy. They were called humans. The humans had been young and weak. They had only discovered space travel a few centuries before, but they learned fast, too fast. They asked questions that made the elder races nervous. They found ancient ruins left behind by the precursors, beings who had vanished millions of years ago. And worst of all, the humans started to unlock the secrets hidden in those ruins. The 5 species decided that humanity was too dangerous, so they did something terrible. They hunted the humans across the galaxy. They burned their worlds. They killed billions. And when 7 million humans remained, crowded onto a desperate fleet of ships, the Conquered used forbidden technology to open a door to the void. The void was not a place. It was the opposite of a place. It was where reality ended and nothing existed. Not space, not time, not life. The Conquered pushed the human fleet through that door and sealed it behind them. They told themselves the humans deserved it. They told themselves it was necessary. And then they spent 12,000 years trying to forget. Ambassador of the was working late in her office on Concord Station when the alarm started. She was 300 years old, which was young for her kind. Her crystal body shifted from calm blue to worried orange as she hurried to the command center. "What is happening?" she asked. The officer on duty turned all 4 of his eyes toward her. His mandibles clicked with fear. "A ship, one ship. It came out of nowhere." "What species?" They did not answer. He simply pointed at the viewing screen. Looked, her crystal form went completely dark for the first time in her life. The ship was massive. It was larger than any vessel in the Conquered fleet. Its hull was black and covered with strange markings that made her translation systems shut down. The metal was and twisted, as if it had survived wounds that should have destroyed it completely. It looked wrong. It looked like something that had crawled out of a nightmare. But the worst part was the symbol painted on its side. 2 circles, one inside the other, the ancient human sign for their home planet, Earth. "That is impossible," whispered. "Nothing survives the void." The ship broadcast a message. It spoke in perfect Conquered standard, the common language of all 5 species. "We found our way back." Within 1 hour, every government in the galaxy knew. Within 2 hours, fleets were mobilizing. Within 3 hours, the Conquered's Emergency Council had assembled for the first time in 6,000 years. 47 warships surrounded the human vessel. They kept their weapons ready. They waited for orders to fire, but no one gave those orders. Everyone was too afraid. Aboard the human ship, which was named Prometheus Rising, Captain Vance stood on her bridge and watched the alien fleet through her viewing screens. She was tall and thin, with silver hair cut short and eyes that seemed too old for her face. She was 93 years old, but her body had stopped aging long ago. The void had changed her. It had changed all of them. "Captain," said her first officer, a man named Tors whose skin had turned gray and whose shadow did not match his movements, "the aliens are requesting communication." "Let them wait," Vance said. "Let them remember what they did. Let them be afraid." She walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Real stars. After so long in the darkness, they were the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Behind her, her crew worked silently. None of them looked quite human anymore. Some had eyes that glowed. Others moved in ways that did not match the laws of physics. A few did not seem entirely solid. They had all survived 12,000 years in a place where survival was impossible. They had paid a price for that survival. But they had come back. Against all odds, against all logic, against the wishes of every species that had tried to destroy them, humanity had returned. Tor spoke again. They are hailing us directly. They want to know why we are here. Vance smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Tell them we are not here for revenge. They will not believe that. No, they will not. She turned to face her crew. But it is true. We did not come back to punish them for what they did to us. We came back to warn them. About what follows us, Tors said quietly. Yes. Vance looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, far behind them, the tier in reality that they had used to escape was still open, and something was pushing through it. Something old, something hungry, something that had been sealed away since before these species existed. We spent 12,000 years learning to survive in the void, Vance said. We found things there, ancient things, terrible things, and we woke something up, something that makes the conquered look like children playing with toys. She straightened her shoulders. For the first time since their return, she opened a channel to the alien fleet. This is Captain Vance of the Prometheus Rising. I know you remember what you did to my people. I know you are afraid of what we might do to you, but your fear is pointed in the wrong direction. There is something coming, something that devoured the precursors, something that we accidentally set free, and if you want to survive what is about to happen, you will need us. She paused. Around the bridge her crew stood ready. 12,000 years of suffering, 12,000 years of transformation, and now, finally, a chance to matter again. We are not your enemies, Vance finished. We are your only hope, and we do not have much time. The channel closed. The galaxy held its breath. And far away, in the space between spaces, something ancient and vast began to move toward the light. The Concord's Emergency Council met in a chamber that had not been used for 6,000 years. Representatives from all 5 species sat in a circle, their faces showing fear, anger, and shame in equal measure. For 3 days, they argued about what to do with the human ship. High Queen La of the Collective spoke first. Her voice buzzed through the translator systems. We must destroy them, now, before they destroy us. And if their warning is true, asked Ambassador, her crystal form flickered with uncertain colors. They spoke of something following them, something dangerous. Lies, the Queen hissed. Humans always lie, they want revenge, they want to trick us. Perhaps, said the ancient voice of Elder Aura. He was so old that his skin had turned to something like stone. He had been alive when the humans were cast into the void. He remembered the screams, but perhaps not. I have studied the readings from their ship. It carries technology we do not understand, technology that should not exist. If they survived 12,000 years in the void, they did not survive unchanged. What are you saying? Demanded the general, his feathers raised in agitation. I am saying that we should be careful. We created this problem. We may not be able to solve it with simple violence. The council argued for 3 more days. But while they argued, something else was happening, something none of them expected. The truth was getting out. For 12,000 years, the story of what happened to humanity had been hidden. The records were sealed. The witnesses were silenced. New generations grew up believing that humans had never existed at all. But secrets do not stay buried forever. A young drone named worked in the historical archives. She was small and curious, traits that her queens did not encourage. When the news of the human ship reached her, she started searching through old files, sealed files, forbidden files. What she found changed everything. Release the truth to every communication network at once. The evidence was undeniable. Documents, recordings, genetic samples, proof that they had helped murder billions of innocent beings and then lied about it for thousands of years. The reaction was immediate and violent. 3 of the 12 Hive Queens had opposed the attack on humanity long ago. Their bloodlines had been pushed to the edges of society for questioning the official story. Now they rose up. "We were right," they broadcast to their followers. "Our ancestors were murderers. Our queens are liars." Civil war erupted across space. Queens turned against queens. Drones fought drones. Entire planets burned as the collective tore itself apart from the inside. The were next. Their society was built on honor. For a warrior, honor was more important than life itself. When the young generation learned what their ancestors had done, they were horrified. Hunting down defenseless civilians was not war. It was murder. Casting survivors into the void was not victory. It was cowardice. "Our elders have no honor," declared a young general named. "They built our dominion on genocide. We cannot follow leaders who have forgotten what it means to be." Half the fleet defected within a week. They did not know what they wanted to do next, but they knew they could not serve the old leaders anymore. Some of them tried to make contact with the human ship. They wanted to apologize. They wanted to make things right. Captain Vance received their messages but did not respond. Not yet. She was waiting, watching, learning how deep the cracks in the Concord truly went. They could not hide from the truth even if they wanted to. Their crystalline bodies recorded every memory perfectly. Every alive carried the memories of their ancestors. They remembered what their people had done to the humans. They had always remembered. "We knew," admitted Elder Crystal X in a public broadcast. "We have always known. We simply chose not to speak of it. We chose to carry our shame in silence." Some accepted this confession. Others could not forgive such cowardice. They began to shake as opposing factions turned their natural abilities against each other. They could create vibrations powerful enough to shatter mountains. Now they shattered each other. Through all of this chaos, they remained silent. They watched from their ocean worlds and said nothing. They had their own secrets, older and stranger than anyone knew. And the elder race retreated to their ancient worlds and sealed their borders. They sent one message to the human ship before they went silent. "You should not have returned. You should not have survived. What did you become in that place?" Captain Vance read the message in her quarters. She was alone, though she was never truly alone anymore. Things lived in her shadow. Voices whispered in frequencies that normal humans could not hear. The void had filled her with presences that she had learned to accept, if not understand. She typed her response slowly. "We became something that remembers. We became something that learned. And we became something that knows what sleeps in the dark, because we woke it up." She sent the message. Then she walked to her bridge and addressed her crew. "The Concord is destroying itself. Fear and guilt are doing our work for us, but this is not enough. We need them, all of them, even the ones who hate us, even the ones who want us dead." "They will never trust us," Tors said. "No, but they will trust their own terror. Soon enough they will see what followed us out of the void. Then they will understand." Outside the viewing ports, the galaxy burned with civil wars. Species that had ruled together for thousands of years now turned on themselves and each other. The peace that had lasted since humanity's destruction was crumbling. And far away, at the edge of known space, the tear in reality continued to widen. Something was pushing through, something vast and patient and impossibly old. It had waited millions of years for this moment. It could wait a little longer. But not much longer. The first tendrils of its presence began to touch normal space. Stars flickered, planets went dark, and beings who had never known fear began to feel something cold creeping into their minds. The entity was coming. And when it arrived, the petty wars of the conquered would mean nothing at all. 6 months passed. The civil wars burned themselves out, not because anyone won, but because everyone was exhausted. The queens declared an uneasy truce. The rebels and loyalists stopped fighting and started watching the human ship instead. They gathered their broken pieces and tried to rebuild. and then Captain Vance finally agreed to meet with them. The meeting took place on Neutral Station 7, a trading post at the edge of conquered space. Representatives from all 5 species gathered in a large conference room. They brought guards and weapons and recording devices. They did not trust the humans. They did not trust each other. The door opened, and Vance walked in. The aliens went silent. A few of them stepped back. One young warrior made a sound of pure fear before his commander silenced him. Vance looked human, mostly. She had the right shape, the right features, the right number of limbs, but something was deeply wrong. Her movements were too smooth, as if she did not quite touch the ground when she walked. Her eyes were dark, but when the light hit them at certain angles, they seemed to contain stars, and her shadow moved in directions that did not match her body. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said. Her voice was normal. That somehow made it worse. Elder Aura of the spoke first. His ancient voice crackled like dry leaves. "What are you?" "I am human," Vance replied. "Or I was. The void changed us. We had no choice. It was change or die." "How many of you survived?" asked Ambassador. 7 million entered the void. 17 million exist now. Vance smiled at their confusion. Time works differently there. Generations were born, most died, but some of us learned to adapt. We found ways to survive that you cannot imagine. She walked to the center of the room. Everyone moved away from her. "But I did not come here to talk about us. I came to show you what follows us." She raised her hand. The lights in the room went dark, and then images appeared in the air around them. Images that burned themselves into every mind present. They saw the precursors. The precursors had been the first intelligent species in the galaxy. They had built civilizations across 1,000,000 worlds. They had unlocked the secrets of space and time. They had seemed immortal, unstoppable, eternal. And then something had found them. "The entity," Vance said. Her voice was quiet now. "It exists between dimensions. It feeds on thought, on consciousness, on the light of intelligent minds. The precursors did not know it existed until it was too late." The images shifted. They showed the precursor civilization falling, world after world going dark, billions of minds being consumed, their thoughts and memories absorbed into something vast and hungry and completely alien. "The precursors could not destroy it," Vance continued. "It was too big, too different. It did not exist in normal space, so normal weapons could not hurt it. All they could do was trap it." The images showed the precursors building something, a cage made of folded space and broken time, a prison that existed outside of reality itself, the void. They sealed the entity away and then erased themselves from existence. They destroyed their own civilization, their own species, everything they had ever built. They did this so the entity would have nothing left to eat, nothing to attract its attention. Spoke, her crystal voice trembling. "And when we sent humanity into the void, you sent 7 million thinking minds into the entity's prison." Vance's voice was cold. 7 million fresh meals. 7 million sparks of consciousness in a darkness that had been starving for millions of years. The room was completely silent. "It fed on us," Vance said. "Billions of thoughts, billions of dreams. The generations born in the void never knew anything else. The entity hunted them, consumed them, grew stronger with every mind it took." "How did any of you survive?" asked the representative. "We learned." Vance's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. "It took us 2,000 years to understand what we were fighting, another 3,000 to develop weapons that could hurt it, 5,000 more to find the weak points in the void's walls, and the rest of the time," she paused, "the rest of the time we fought, every day, every hour, for thousands of years." She lowered her hand. The lights returned, the images faded, but the horror remained. "We found a way out," Vance said. "We tore a hole in the void and we escaped, but we could not close the hole behind us, and the entity is following. It has been pushing through that hole since the moment we opened it. Soon it will reach normal space. And when it does, it will feed on every thinking being in this galaxy. How long? Aura demanded. Months, maybe less. The conference room erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Guards raised weapons. The representative tried to call for evacuation orders. They demanded immediate military action. Vance stood in the middle of it all and waited. Finally raised her voice above the noise. What do you want from us? Why did you come back? You could have let us die. We deserve it. Vance looked at her. For a moment something almost human flickered across her face. Pain. Old, deep pain that had never healed. We thought about it, she admitted. For a long time, letting you face the entity alone, letting you experience what we experienced, it would have been fair. Then why didn't you? Vance was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Because we are still human, changed, twisted, maybe broken, but still human, and humans do not abandon others to monsters, not even others who hurt us, not even others who tried to destroy us. She straightened her shoulders. We came back to save you, all of you, even if you do not deserve it. She turned to address the entire room. The Prometheus Rising is not alone. In the void we built ships, weapons, an army of the changed and the adapted, 17 million humans ready to fight. But we cannot win this war alone. We need your resources, your factories, your numbers. Together we might survive. Apart, we will all be consumed. She walked toward the door, then stopped. You have 3 days to decide. After that, we leave, and you face the entity alone. The door closed behind her. In the silence that followed, the representatives of 5 species looked at each other. The species that had tried to destroy humanity. The species that had created this disaster. The species that now needed humans to save them. The shame was unbearable, but the fear was worse. 3 days later, they gave their answer. They chose to fight. The coalition came together slowly, like broken bones healing. Trust did not come easily. Trust might never come at all. But fear was a powerful motivator, and the fear of the entity was stronger than ancient hatred. Captain Vance stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising and watched the conquered fleets arrive. Thousands of ships from 5 different species gathering around her single vessel. They still kept their weapons ready. Old habits died hard. Captain, Torres said, we are receiving a transmission from the void. Vance nodded. She had been expecting this. Put it through. The main screen flickered and a face appeared. Admiral Wei, commander of the remnant fleet. He had been born in the void, one of the generations that never knew normal space. His skin was pale gray and his eyes glowed with a soft blue light. He looked more alien than many of the conquered species. The fleet is ready, he said. 17 million strong. We can transit to normal space within 6 hours. Wait for my signal, Vance replied. The coalition is still forming. They need to see what we are fighting before they see our full strength. Wei nodded. Understood. But Captain, our scouts report the entity is moving faster. The breach is widening. We may have less time than we thought. Then we will work faster. The transmission ended. Vance turned to find Ambassador standing at the entrance to her bridge. The crystal form shifted through nervous colors. You may enter, Vance said. Stepped inside, looking around at the strange technology that filled the human ship. Nothing made sense to her. The walls seemed to move when she was not looking directly at them. The lights came from no visible source. And the crew frightened her more than anything. I have questions, said. I know, ask them. Why do you trust us? After what we did, after 12,000 years of suffering, why would you help us? Vance was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to the viewing port and looked out at the gathered fleets. When we first entered the void, she said, we wanted revenge. Every human alive dreamed of returning and burning your worlds, making you suffer as we suffered. That hatred kept us alive for centuries. What changed? The entity showed us what hatred really looks like. Vance's voice was soft, pure hunger, pure malice, a desire to consume everything forever with no purpose beyond the consuming. Compared to that, our anger seemed small, human. We realized we did not want to become what we were fighting. She turned to face. We are still angry. We will always be angry. But we chose to use that anger for something better than revenge. We chose to prove that humans are more than what you feared, more than what you tried to destroy. Before could respond, alarms began to sound across the ship. Tors shouted from his station. "Captain, sensors detect massive energy readings at the edge of the system. The entity is here." Vance moved to the command chair. Her face showed no surprise. "Show me." The viewing screen shifted to display the outer reaches of the solar system. At first, there was nothing unusual: stars, empty space, darkness. Then the darkness moved. It was vast beyond comprehension. A shadow that swallowed light, that twisted space around itself, that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could process. Looking at it caused pain. Looking away was nearly impossible. It pulled at the mind, at the thoughts, at the very consciousness of everyone who saw it. "That is what we have been fighting," Vance said quietly, "for 12,000 years." The conquered fleets went into panic, ships scattered, weapons fired blindly, communications channels filled with screaming. "They are breaking formation," Tors reported, "multiple ships attempting to flee." "Let them see it for a moment longer," Vance said. "Let them understand." The entity reached toward the nearest ships. A tendril of absolute darkness extended across space. It touched a cruiser. The ship did not explode. It simply stopped. Every light went dark. Every system went dead. And every mind aboard was pulled into the entity's vast consciousness. 30,000 consumed in an instant. "Now," Vance said, "signal the remnant." Reality tore open behind the entity. Not a wound in space, but a door. And through that door came the remnant fleet. They were beautiful and terrible. Ships made of metals that did not exist in normal space. Vessels that flickered between dimensions. Weapons that glowed with energies that made physics weep. 17 million humans who had learned to fight monsters. The remnant fleet engaged the entity. And for the first time, the conquered species saw what humanity had become. Human ships moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. They appeared and disappeared, striking from angles that did not exist. Their weapons did not fire projectiles or energy beams. They fired something worse. They fired unmake, weapons that erased things from reality itself. Where human weapons hit the entity, pieces of it simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, unmade, as if they had never been. The entity screamed. It was not a sound. It was a thought, a psychic wave of rage and pain that hit every mind in the system. Conquered crew members collapsed. Some died instantly, their brains unable to handle the contact. But the humans kept fighting. "All coalition forces," Vance broadcast on every channel. "This is what we face. This is what we have faced for 12,000 years. If you run, it will follow. If you hide, it will find you. The only choice is to fight." She paused. "Today you fight beside humanity. Today we show you how to hurt it. Tomorrow and every day after we teach you to kill it. The war begins now." The conquered fleets hesitated. Then slowly they began to reform. Ships moved back into position. Weapons charged. Communications channels cleared. They were first to respond. "We fly with you, humans. Our honor demands it." The followed. "We remember our guilt. Let us earn something better to remember." The Queen spoke in unison. "The collective stands ready." Even the ancient and proud added their ships to the formation. "We watch stars die," Aura said. "We will not watch the galaxy die with them." The coalition formed, imperfect, fragile, held together by fear more than trust, but it formed. And together, humans and aliens turned to face the entity. The first battle was brutal. Ships died by the hundreds. Mines were consumed by the thousands. The entity was wounded but not defeated. It retreated, pulling back toward the breach, but everyone knew it would return. It would always return until it was destroyed completely. In the aftermath, Captain Vance addressed the survivors. "This was just the beginning," she said. "The entity is old, patient. It will test us. It will try to divide us. It will attack our minds as much as our ships, but we can beat it. We have been beating it for 12,000 years, and now, finally, we do not fight alone." She looked out at the gathered fleet, human ships floating beside alien vessels, former enemies standing together. "Welcome to the war," she said. "Welcome to humanity's war, and may we all live to see it end." Far away, the entity waited. It had been hurt. It was angry, but it was also patient. The war had only just begun. The war lasted 300 years. For the first 50 years, the coalition simply tried to survive. The entity attacked without warning, appearing from folds in space that prediction. It consumed entire fleets. It swallowed worlds. It learned from every battle, adapting to every weapon the coalition threw at it. But the coalition learned too. They discovered they could sense the entity's approach through their hive-mind connection. Their psychic sensitivity became an early warning system. Entire battle groups now included scouts whose only job was to feel the darkness coming. They found that their perfect memories could resist the entity's mental attacks. They became anchors, standing beside other species and helping them hold onto their sanity when the entity's screams tore through their minds. They proved to be fearless pilots. Their honor culture transformed into something new, a belief that dying in battle against the entity was the greatest glory a warrior could achieve. They flew into engagements that no other species would attempt. They finally revealed their secret. They had been created by the precursors, designed as caretakers and guardians. Hidden in their genetic memory were star charts showing precursor installations across the galaxy, weapons caches, shield generators, technologies that had been dormant for millions of years. And the oldest of all became the Coalition's memory. They recorded every battle, every tactic, every sacrifice. They made sure that nothing was forgotten, that every death had meaning. But it was the humans who led the war. Captain Vance became Admiral Vance, then Supreme Commander Vance. She led from the front, always aboard the Prometheus Rising, always where the fighting was worst. She should have died 100 times. She should have been consumed like so many others. But something protected her, something in what she had become during those 12,000 years in the void. The entity hated her. It feared her. She was the one thing in the universe that had consistently hurt it, that had refused to be consumed, that had escaped its prison and then returned to fight. As the decades passed, the war changed both sides. The coalition species began to merge in ways no one expected. Served on ships, warriors trained with human soldiers. Children were born who had never known a galaxy without war, who thought of all species as allies against the common enemy. And humanity changed most of all. The remnant had entered the war with 17 million souls. After 100 years, they numbered barely 12 million, but those who survived became something beyond human. The war pushed them further into transformation. They could see probability, watching futures branch and choosing the best path. They could step between dimensions, appearing behind enemy lines without warning. Their weapons grew stranger and more powerful. Some coalition members feared what humanity was becoming. They whispered that the humans were turning into something as alien as the entity itself, that by fighting the monster, they were becoming monsters. Admiral Vance heard these whispers. She understood them. Sometimes, late at night on the bridge of her ship, she wondered if they were right. "Are we still human?" she asked Tors one evening. They were drifting near a battlefield where thousands had died that morning. The stars were bright, but they seemed cold and distant. Tors considered the question. His gray skin reflected the light of distant suns. His eyes had turned completely silver over the years. He had not eaten or slept in decades. He was not sure he could anymore. "Does it matter?" he finally replied. "We were cast out. We were abandoned. We were supposed to die. Instead, we became something that can save the galaxy. If that is not human, then perhaps human was never good enough." Vance nodded slowly. Maybe, or maybe being human was always about becoming more than what we were, adapting, surviving, growing. That sounds like something humans would believe. She almost smiled. Yes, it does. The final battle came in the 300th year of the war. Coalition scientists, working with precursor technology and human void knowledge, had developed a weapon. Not a bomb or a beam, but a seal. A way to close the breach permanently and trap the entity on the other side. But the weapon required time to charge. Someone would have to hold the entity back while it powered up. Admiral Vance did not ask for volunteers. She knew who had to do it. The human fleet gathered at the breach. 12 million souls who had survived 3 centuries of war. Behind them, the Coalition Armada waited to protect the weapon as it charged. "This is Admiral Vance," she broadcast to every ship. 300 years ago, the Conquered tried to destroy us. They threw us into the void and forgot we existed, but we survived. We adapted. We became something they could never imagine. And now we will finish what the precursors started. We will seal the entity away forever." She paused. Around her, her bridge crew stood ready. Tors, the others who had served beside her for centuries. They had become more than crew, more than friends, more than family. "Some of us will not survive this," Vance continued. "But our deaths will have meaning. Our deaths will save the galaxy. Not because the galaxy deserves it, but because that is what humans do. We protect. We fight. We refuse to surrender even when everything is lost." She took a breath. "Today, we prove that humanity was never a threat to be eliminated. Humanity was always a hope to be embraced, and that hope will outlast us. It will outlast this war. It will shine in the darkness forever." The entity attacked with all its strength. It knew this was the final battle. It threw itself at the human fleet with a fury that description. Ships died by the thousands. Minds were consumed by the millions. But the humans held the line. They fought for hours, then days. Time twisted around the breach, stretching moments into eternities. The weapons slowly charged. The Coalition fleet protected it with everything they had. And at the center of the storm, Admiral Vance led her people in a final charge. The Prometheus Rising drove directly into the heart of the entity. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. But Vance had spent 300 years learning how to hurt this creature. She knew its weaknesses. She knew where to strike. The ship's final weapon activated. Not a bomb, but a needle. A sliver of unmaking designed to tear a hole in the entity's core. The entity screamed. The psychic wave killed millions across the system, but the hole opened. The entity's attention, for one crucial moment, turned inward. And in that moment, the weapon fired. Reality folded. Space twisted. The breach collapsed in on itself, pulling the entity through. The seal activated, locking the creature away in the void once more. This time, the seal was made with precursor knowledge, human innovation, and the combined wisdom of 5 species. This time it would hold. The Prometheus Rising vanished in the collapse. Admiral Vance and her crew were gone. No one knew if they were dead or simply trapped on the other side of the seal. No one would ever know. But the war was over. The galaxy breathed. In the centuries that followed, the Coalition became something new. Not the old Conquered built on lies and genocide. Something better. A true alliance, forged in fire and loss and shared sacrifice. Memorials were built on 1,000 worlds. The names of the fallen were carved into stone and crystal and living wood. Human names stood beside and, all equal, all honored. The remaining humans, those who had stayed behind from the final battle, became part of the galaxy. They were strange, changed, not quite like any other species, but they were welcomed. They had earned their place. 1,000 years later, a young historian submitted her thesis. It was called The Human Question: Saviors, Monsters, or Something Beyond Both. She argued that humans had been all three. They had started as victims. They had become something frightening. And in the end, they had chosen to be heroes. 3 days after submitting her thesis, she was found unconscious in her study. Her crystalline form had cracked, though she was still alive. And in her core, where kept their deepest memories, a single word had been etched. One word in an ancient human language. Yes. No one knew what it meant. No one knew how it had gotten there, but some believed it was a message from the other side of the seal, a confirmation that the humans were still there, still watching, still protecting. And somewhere in the darkness, Admiral Vance smiled. She and her crew had found something on the other side, something unexpected, perhaps a new world, perhaps a new form of existence, perhaps simply peace. But they had not forgotten. And if the seal ever broke, if the entity ever escaped, they would be ready. Because that was what humans did. They adapted, they survived, they protected. Forever,